I'm Jeff Skiles, and Sully Sullenberger and I have come down here to Miami, Florida to get second-in-command type ratings in the DC-7.
As a kid, probably about a 10-year-old, I built a plastic model of a DC-7. And it captured my imagination. You know, it was a way to get to exotic places and have adventures. And so to fly the DC-7 is actually the realization of a childhood dream that I never thought I'd be able to achieve.
The DC-7 is the ultimate piston engine airliner. It's the fastest piston engine airliner that was ever built, and it was the last of the line. The first one flew in 1954. The Boeing 707 came out in '55. And so these were out of date from almost the very first moment that they flew.
Where I put my seat, if I look down over the pitot tube onto the center line of whatever taxiway or whatever, I'm pretty much in the center line.
This morning we started with a walk around in the DC-7, which is a little bit of a familiarization program. We start somewhere. The nose of the aircraft is good. We basically go over how that nose gear operates, how it steers, what goes on up in the wheel well.
This is the emergency gear indication system. If you don't have the gear light up in the cockpit, you open the window and you hang your head out in the slipstream and you look to see this little red tab here, and if you see it, the gear's down.
And then we come back in here where we have these engines where we can do a lot better job of familiarizing ourselves with them.
This is the engine that's on the DC-7B. It's the Wright R3350 turbo compound engine. And what makes this different from the other smaller horsepower engines is they actually use the power of the exhaust to create extra horsepower. As you can see, each one of these exhaust ports is connected to a power recovery turbine, which is down here, which acts very similar to a turbocharger. It gets the power, it spins this, it gets the power from the exhaust, and then it's brought back to the crankshaft through a fluid coupling. Each one of these power recovery turbines, there's 3 of them on each engine, produces about 150 additional horsepower that's gained just from utilizing the exhaust off the engine. So that's 450 horsepower on each engine is utilized just by recovering the exhaust.
And if you don't think that's significant, if you do the math on it, that totals up to 1,800 horsepower that you wouldn't have otherwise at max power.
Yeah, that's actually about 15% of the rated horsepower is being recovered just by the exhaust.
If you want to grab some of these levers just to see what you think about them, try them occasionally.
We spend a lot of time doing cockpit familiarization. We're not burning 500 gallons an hour while we're doing that. It's a lot more relaxed atmosphere. And we just start with the basics. We start by running a checklist, and running the checklist.
We're climbing. This whole climb will probably be done at under 300 feet a minute. Things don't happen real fast in the vertical. When we get to our assigned altitude, level off, use that the last power setting to accelerate to your cruise, which will be climbing at 185. We'll be cruising at about 210, 212. Call for climb power.
Most folks with today's background, when they come into an aircraft like this, whether they're flying for the airlines where they're used to more than one crew member, but usually not a flight engineer, or if they're flying in general aviation, they're not used to having someone sitting in the middle virtually doing almost everything for them. And it's one of the things that we spend a lot of time talking about is to do your job properly, you have to allow and direct the flight engineer to do his job properly.
The engines are so complex. You got oil cooler doors you're having to change. You got cowl flaps you're having to change on the engine. Plus, you know what you normally would think of with the throttle, the mixture, the carb heat, the propeller controls. So there's a lot of extra things that have to be operated to fly one of these airplanes. So to have an engineer is very valuable.
Some pictures, final items complete. So you want to call field barometric? Hey, barometric check. Coming.
1 year back in the 90s, I had 26 engine failures in 1 year, 3 hydraulic failures, and 2 fires. So that's kind of give you, it's like a flying simulator.
So, Ruggy's calling up oil pressure on number 4. I'm looking out here at number 4, and I've got a bunch of oil. Okay. Over in the wing. Alrighty, number 4. Okay, so we should pull number 4 back and see if it improves. If it doesn't, let's shut it down.
Flying the airplane for the first time was about what I expected. It wasn't terribly difficult, but the controls are very heavy. They're not hydraulically boosted. it's muscle boosted.
The airplane is very heavy on the controls, and you have to have two hands on the yoke when you're actually flaring the airplane to come in to land.
You don't have a computer between yourself and anything that happens. You are the computer.
It just feels really solid. You can tell it's large, it's massive.
You're a much more integral part of the whole operation than in a modern aircraft.
We started out during the day, but quickly became sunset, and we're flying this 4-engine airliner. It's just a entirely nostalgic experience here, at sunset, and then when the airplane became, when the sun actually set, the airplane actually kicks out a lot of flame out of the exhaust. It's the power recovery turbines just shoot flame out the exhaust on these airplanes, which is another unusual factor of these old airplanes. So when you're sitting there in your seat, it must have been kind of disconcerting for passengers at the time, because you look out and it looks like the wing's on fire, because the engines literally spew out flames, just and they're operating absolutely normally.
These aircraft have not operated commercially for a number of years. People are not really familiar with them, so when they do what they were designed to do, what's normal for them, it looks like something's terribly out of place. They make a lot of smoke, they make a lot of fire. They're meant to make a lot of fire. It puts on quite a show, and again, if you're not used to seeing it, you're going to think something is very wrong, when in fact, if there's no fire, something would be very wrong.
I like the way it starts with the smoke and the bellowing and it starts totally different than the 6.
It's like going back in time. This is essentially a time machine. It's a relic. It's an artifact of a previous age.
I think the DC-7 is probably the peak of when the great airline travel was going on. I think it was the most advanced aircraft doing it back then. We all dressed up when we were going somewhere. It was an exceptional experience, and it was a simpler time.
Now that Sully and I have type ratings on the airplane, we're going to be conducting a flight, a fundraising flight, to bring this airplane up to the the Carolinas Aircraft Museum in Charlotte, which is where it's going to winter over in their hangar there as part of an exhibit in their display in their museum. And it's going to be a full load of people. There's going to be a lot of press, because Sully's involved. There's always press when Sully's involved.
Sorry. Go ahead. One of the main differences with these older planes is the amount of space you have. This is before overhead compartments, and take a look at all that leg room.
And Miami departure. Douglas 836 Delta is with you through 1000 for 2.
Happy birthday, dear Jeff. Happy birthday to you.
Cactus 1967, Charlotte Tower, runway 36 right, line up and
Coming off. Come on, come on.
7 mile final.
And we're +8. Line up and white 36 right. Cactus 1967. Doggy. Listen, Jeffrey, open your window wide so you get a good look at that when they do the water cannon.
That landing was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping they hire me.
Was that your birthday present, having that landing?
That was my birthday
That'd be a good
present
one.
to me.
That was a good one.
It worked out.
Really, super. I'm not kidding. That was beautiful, Jeff.
Well, thank you.
Beautiful.
Don't expect to see that twice.
And they're expecting it in Miami now, Dave.